Moving up next, we have got the New England Patriots. Not quite the season they hoped of or dreamed of, but some potential glimmers of hope, shall we say, moving forward. Let's start, Tom, quarterback position. Have we potentially got a dilemma moving into next season? Is Mac Jones the answer? Could we see them go with Bailey Zappi? Could they see them bring somebody else in? What do you think is going to happen here?
I'm not sure I think that Bailey Zappi is going to take the job. I think he had his opportunity and he ended up back on the bench. And even though there were a lot of question marks, there seemed to be a lot of leaks coming out of New England at the time as well. It felt like they'd seen enough of Bailey Zappi that he wasn't good enough to completely displace Mac Jones. Now, I'm not saying that Mac Jones has got this job secure and, he should definitely be slightly looking over his shoulder. If the Patriots can get a good veteran quarterback on a cheap deal and just pretend that he's going to be the backup, but then slowly bring him in, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because the Patriots fans, they're not used to losing. They've had all these years where they've been winning. They've been in the playoffs consistently. And now they're having to deal with life in the NFL for the majority of fans. It's not playoffs every year. It's not 6 Super Bowls. And Mac Jones, he had a good rookie season, but he regressed. He went from 7.3 yards per attempt down to 6.8. He threw less than 1 passing touchdown per game, which when that happens, your pass catchers just aren't really going to be able to maximize anything. And these pass catchers aren't particularly great in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about potential pass catchers there. Obviously, Jacoby Myers was the player leading the way in terms of targets and fantasy production. He is a free agent heading into this season. Are you expecting them to re-sign him and make him a kind of off-season priority?
I think the Patriots have to do something. Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, these kind of players, these aren't good enough. They don't put a spark in the games, whereas Jacoby Myers really can deliver that spark in games. Last season it was all about the fact that he wasn't scoring touchdowns. He only had 2, but this year the touchdowns came, but he wasn't getting the yardage because this team just wasn't throwing the ball well enough and the offense wasn't any good. So it was very hard for him to be really fantasy relevant. But he did have some spells over the first 8 games. He was wide receiver 13 in points per game. And then you just kind of saw it all tail off because whichever Patriots offensive coordinator or person who's calling the plays was doing a terrible job of it.
You mean you didn't love the Patricia and Judge dual coordinator?
Well, I don't think Bill Belichick did, and I definitely know that Mac Jones didn't. I mean, we saw his frustration at times. You saw him screaming, you saw him losing it almost weekly for a stretch of games, which that's not the Patriot way. And I think it's just been even more obvious, though, that the fans felt that way about Mac Jones at times too. So nobody's really excused from it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of the negative. There was one massive shining light from the Patriots season. That was, of course, Rhamondre Stevenson. 9th in total fantasy points. You got on the screen there. 3rd in targets with 83. 7 weeks as a top 12 running back. Averaging 14.7 points per game. And what more could you say other than an incredible season from a unique back in terms of the size and the build and his ability in the receiving game?
Yeah, and he was the perfect zero and hero RB player this year. He's been in so many best ball teams that did really well this year. And you could see it coming because Damian Harris's production last year came massively in the touchdowns column. He had 15 touchdowns. And we knew that if that regressed and if Rhamondre Stevenson was getting on the field more, we knew he was a more explosive running back. And so many people spend so much of their time in fantasy talking about the negatives, saying, oh, well, Bill Belichick never wants a workhorse running back. But sometimes you have to open yourself up to the what-if questions and saying, well, if things swing just slightly towards Rhamondre, what is his ceiling? And we saw it this year. He was incredible and he won people leagues.
Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, I certainly someone that I loved wherever I could. From a dynasty perspective, Tom, is he someone that you're comfortable going out and acquiring right now? Do you think he's, we talk about Patriots running backs, that old myth of Bill never likes to have just one. Do you think you can invest potentially a mid to late first round pick in someone like Stevenson?
Well, he's somebody that I bought a lot of last off season, and I was going out and paying third round picks for him. So I'd find it quite hard to now part with a first, knowing the prices that I was getting last year. And I had 3 teams that won championships this year, and he was on every single one of them. So it's difficult for me, but I don't think that you're overpaying. I think people will convince themselves they are overpaying. But Damian Harris is a free agent this offseason. I'm not sure the Patriots are going to want to re-sign him. I mean, like I mentioned before, he had 15 touchdowns last year, but the seasons either side of that, he combined for just 5 touchdowns. So you can argue that middle season was the outlier, and he wasn't healthy this year. I'm not sure he's shown enough to deserve the kind of contract that most running backs want. And if the Patriots are going to get a rookie, then that's not somebody I'm worried about taking work off Rhamondre Stevenson unless they really invest something high up.
Yeah, I'm really not concerned. I think this backfield Stevenson's moving forward. We saw them invest a day 2 pick in PS Strong, a day 3 pick in Kevin Harris last year. I don't expect them to go back to the well again this year. They've got those 3 guys under contract. It would seem slightly ridiculous with the volume of holes that they've got across the offensive line, the receiving room, quite a few holes on the defense. I think they've got other issues than bringing in somebody to compete with Rhamondre Stevenson. So yeah, I went out and bought him yesterday for the 111 in a league, and I don't tell the guy I bought this off, but I'd probably have paid the 108, 107, something like that for him. So yeah, I really like Rhamondre Stevenson, and I think he's going to be, another one of these backs that we see. He's got that floor because of the receiving game work. 83 targets on the year, and that was a year in which he didn't take over until week 3. I think he missed a couple of games for injury. That's a big target volume to be getting from what is a big back.
Yeah, and if we see more competent offensive coordinators come in and just get this offense playing at 20% better than it was, then the ceiling gets even higher for Stevenson.